This happened when I was 8 years old, just a kid, tagging along with my parents on Easter Sunday. Every year we would go to the local church for the big Easter egg hunt. It was one of those traditions that felt like it was carved into the very fabric of spring. The sun would always shine so brightly, and the air had that sweet, almost warm smell of grass and flowers. I remember my mom telling me to be careful around the other kids. But there was always something comforting about being surrounded by family, friends, and the safety of the church grounds. It felt like a day where nothing could go wrong. The church was always the same every Easter. The walls were lined with soft, pastel-colored decorations, pastel pinks and yellows that hung from every corner. There were paper cutouts of crosses, bunnies, and little lambs dotted along the walls, giving the place a cheerful, almost festive vibe. The soft murmur of families chatting filled the air, mixing with the occasional burst of laughter from excited kids running around. The smell of fresh-baked cookies from the church kitchen lingered in the air. The music played gently in the background, hymns, familiar and soothing. It felt like a perfect day, nothing out of the ordinary. Just the usual Easter buzz, something I looked forward to every year. I was walking down the hallway, heading to the bathroom like I'd done 100 times before. But this time, something felt different. It was hard to put into words, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The usual chatter and laughter from the kids down the hall seemed muffled, almost distant. The fluorescent lights buzzed a little louder than usual, flickering just once, as though they were struggling to stay on. As I passed by the classrooms, something caught my eye. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. It wasn't unusual for it to be open, but this time the air around it felt colder. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired, but that strange feeling lingered, gnawing at me. I stood in the hallway, frozen for a moment, staring at the slightly open bathroom door. Then, something shifted in my peripheral vision. I turned, and there, standing in the corner of the room, was a figure. At first, I thought it was just one of the older kids playing a joke. But something was off. The figure was too still, too quiet. It wore a tattered, old-fashioned dress, one I had never seen anyone wear before. Its face was pale, almost waxy, with eyes that glowed faintly like they were alive, but not quite human. It didn't move much, just swayed slightly, as if caught in a draft. Then, in a voice that was almost a whisper, it said, "You're the lucky one." I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. The air around me grew thick, like time had slowed down. I was still confused, but something deep inside told me to run. But my feet wouldn't move. The figure took a step forward, its foot dragging slowly across the floor. I could hear the creak of its movements, like the sound of an old chair scraping against the ground. My heart raced, and I could feel my legs trembling, but I was still frozen in place. It was getting closer. I could see its hand reaching out, fingers twitching as if it wanted to touch me. Suddenly, the door slammed open behind me. I whipped around to see Mrs. Carter, one of the teachers, rushing into the hallway, her voice sharp. "What on earth are you doing here?" I turned back to the corner, but the figure was gone, just vanished. I stood there, my breath heavy in my chest, unsure of what had just happened. I didn't even know if I should be relieved or terrified. I never told anyone what I saw that day. How could I? They would have thought I was imagining things, or worse, that I was just a scared kid. But the memory, it's still there. Every time I pass that hallway, I swear I hear the faint sound of dragging feet. And sometimes, late at night, I'll see a shadow flicker at the edge of my vision, just like the one I saw in that room. I still don't know what it was, or if it was ever real. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I wonder, what would have happened if Mrs. Carter hadn't walked in? But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I wonder, what would have happened if Mrs. Carter hadn't walked in?
This happened when I was 10. It was the Saturday before Easter, and the sun was bright, soft wind moving through the trees in our backyard. My mom had hidden a bunch of colorful plastic eggs all over the yard, just like she did every year. I remember the smell of fresh-cut grass and the sound of birds chirping while my little sister giggled, running around with her Easter basket. I had mine too. It was blue with a cracked handle held together by tape. It was one of those perfect afternoons. No school, no homework, just candy, laughter, and sunshine. We were laughing so much, tossing eggs in the basket, trying to find the golden one Mom always hid. If I had just stopped right then, if I had never gone near the fence, maybe everything would have stayed perfect. Our backyard wasn't anything special, just a big grassy area with a few trees and an old wooden fence that separated our yard from the neighbors. But there was one spot near the back corner, just behind the bushes, where it felt different. It was darker there, even during the day. The way the sunlight barely made it through the thick branches above always gave it a weird, cold feeling. The fence had an old wooden gate, crooked from years of weather and age. It creaked whenever someone touched it. The grass was always a little longer there, growing wild and untamed. Right next to the gate, a patch of earth seemed a little too disturbed, like something had been buried and shifted around. I'd never really paid much attention to it before, but that day, it felt off, like something was waiting for me. It started with something small, something I almost brushed off. I had been running around, enjoying the sunshine, when I noticed something strange near that corner of the yard. At first, it was just a glimpse, something red, half buried in the grass. I thought it was one of those old Easter eggs we used to hide for fun, but when I stepped closer, the air seemed to cool, like a breeze had swept through, even though the day was warm. The sound of the wind suddenly stopped. I don't know why, but the silence felt heavy, pressing against me. As I knelt down to pick it up, I noticed something I hadn't before. The egg was wrong. The colors were off, like the paint had been smeared, and the surface felt unnaturally smooth, almost too smooth, but I didn't think much of it yet. As I turned the egg in my hands, trying to make sense of the strange feeling creeping over me, I noticed something I hadn't before. A faint red stain on the back. It was dried, almost like blood. I froze, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. Then the sound of footsteps behind me. They weren't mine. My breath caught, and I turned around quickly. No one was there. But the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Something was watching me. I shook it off, telling myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't help it. I started walking back toward the house when I heard a whisper, soft, just above a breath. "You shouldn't have touched it." I stopped dead in my tracks. My hands trembled around the egg. I had to get inside, fast. My pulse raced as I gripped the egg tighter, its strange weight almost too much to handle. I turned, ready to run, but then a loud thud echoed from the backyard. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Something, or someone, was back there. I didn't dare look. I turned to the side, heading straight for the door, when I heard it again. A voice, low and scratchy, almost too familiar. "Leave it alone." I whirled around, but there was no one in sight. Panic surged through me. I bolted for the door, slamming it shut behind me. My hand fumbled for the lock, but before I could secure it, the front light flickered on suddenly. I gasped, rushing upstairs. The sense of danger didn't go away. It felt closer now. The next morning, everything seemed normal. The sun was out, birds were singing, and my backyard looked just like it always had. But I knew better. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I searched the yard, but that egg, was gone. I checked every corner of the backyard, every crevice, but it had disappeared without a trace. No sign of it, no strange markings. I never told anyone what happened. How could I? What could I even say? It didn't make sense, but I still think about it. I still feel that strange chill whenever I step into my backyard. I still don't know what I saw or who was watching me, and to this day, I can't shake the feeling that someone is still out there,